Yeah, I know it's a little late in the evening, but I hope the beignets and the coffee have, just warmed your souls a little bit and taken away, that slump feeling that we all get at 2:30, 3 o'clock. So we do want to just bring, the spirit down to a nice calming. I don't have your calming voice, but I do want to kind of just let's all just take a deep breath. After everything that has been poured into us, have we really had a chance to just digest and just take a breath and just acknowledge how much we've just been poured into today? And this is the first day, and a lot of people are here for the first time. So just a moment, just close your eyes and just take a deep breath. Like you're here. Let's acknowledge that you're here and you've learned so much. And we are about to learn so much more. So on the count of three, just close your eyes and let's inhale, exhale. It's a good reset, right? It's a good reset. We learned about that this morning. You definitely want to come into a new opportunity, a new meeting with a new sense of purpose, a new sense of learning. And so I hope that we can keep you all engaged for 45 minutes. Um, and Asia, I just want to say thank you for this opportunity. Full disclosure, I didn't know if I wanted to do this. And I told Asia, I said, yeah, I think I do want to present, but I missed the application deadline just because I was in the way of my own self. But Asia, being Asia, put the meeting on my calendar anyway. And that, my friends, is accountability. And that's what you're going to get after you finish reading this book.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'd also like to acknowledge my husband who is here, Mr. Bradley Taylor. Thank you for your support, my sponsor. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you all for allowing men who are, interested in women in project management to share this space. So we're just going to dive right in.
Okay.
If you all don't know, yes, our founder, Asya Watkins, wrote a book. And it wasn't just a book. It was her diary. It was an amazing just experience, just reading and listening to what she had to say. It was raw. It was real. It wasn't cookie cutter, like generic cliche stuff. It really spoke to me. And it really awoken something in me that I'm hoping will awaken in you today. So the first question I have for you is you didn't just give us advice. You gave us a framework. From the 4 acts to the reflection prompts and even emails to our future selves. This book feels more like a guide we're meant to grow with. So why was it important to you to structure the book this way?
One of the things when I was creating the book and trying to figure out what I wanted to say was how I wanted to say it. And I know a lot of us are busy people, right? And so I really wanted to pour in all of my advice and all the things that I've learned throughout my career, but I wanted to make it really concise. So I wanted every chapter to be like a micro chapter. And I wanted to structure it where if you are going through something in that moment, in work, at work, that you could literally thumb through the table of contents and say, "Oh my, this is what I need now." And so every chapter is the title is "Read This When." So it's read this when you have imposter syndrome, or read this when you feel like the only in the room, or read this when you're stressed out and you don't have a lot of time, and even breath work in the book. And so I just poured in of what I thought how I would like to consume the book. So every chapter, micro chapter, is broken into read this when that topic, and it gives you a real story of something I've gone through throughout my 20 plus years in this career. And so I figure it's always easier to learn from an exact example. And then I break it down to a little advice of like what I've learned and how I'm, summarizing it up. and then it goes into, I break it down to advice by career level. So if you're brand new, if you're mid-career, if you're a seasoned professional, you can go to what that is. You don't have to say, "Oh, chapter 1 and 2 is for new people, chapter this and that." Every single chapter is for every single person, and then I have a career clarity exercise in there, and it's also a journal. You could journal prompts from each chapter, and then it ends with the email to you, because sometimes we just need to be reminded. So every email too, because we read emails anyway, right? So every email is starts out with, "Hey you, I know you're tired, but," and so it really is talking to you from the person who's already healed, who's already gone through that, just so you have that reminder of, if you go back to that chapter and you need that, you can just simply read the email, and it's really more of an affirmation for you to sum it all up. So I thought it was important to just break it down, because I didn't want people to read it like a novel. I wanted them to read it as like a book they can reference over and over again.
That's so beautiful, Asia. I think the best part about the Little Black Book of Project Management Advice
Mhm,
is the format itself.
mhm,
I got a chance to listen to the book in the audiobook format.
mhm,
And let me tell you, I am a fan of audiobooks now. I didn't even know that I was a fan until, Asia
mhm,
wrote her book and
mhm,
decided to do the audiobook version.
mhm,
And it's almost like having your best good girlfriend
mhm.
who gives like the best advice whenever you're stressed out. You can literally hit play and have that quick like conversation with her. But she's Asian now. And it's Asia. We all love it. We all love Asia. And so it's almost like you are there one on one, having a one on one with Asia
Mhm,
whenever you need her. And
mhm.
I love that about that. So the second question I have for you is, you shared that you were once a timid little girl with one friend named Autumn, quiet and unsure.
Mhm.
What would you say to her now, knowing the woman you've become? And how do you carry her with you when the room feels too loud or too heavy?
Mm. So in the book, one of the things that I reflected on is going through a lot of these stories, you have to reflect on yourself in order to write the stories. And so one of the things that I reflected on was when I was in kindergarten, I was super, super shy. And I had one little friend named Autumn. And anyone else who talked to me, I would not talk back because I was just very shy. And so what I've learned at this big age is that, even though I've evolved, that little girl is still inside of me. And so you can call it introvert, you can call it whatever you want, but I still have those moments where that's still a part of me, and that's okay. And so I don't know. I talk to her often lately. And so we were talking, Rosalind was saying this in our morning session about, bringing that little girl along and like dragging her with you sometimes. And we're all dragging that little girl along with her. So I've kind of got to the point where it's a relationship now. It's not I'm asking her to be anything. It's just more of a witnessing and seeing that there's parts of me that, there's parts of me that's shy. There's parts of me that has evolved. But just recognizing all of those things. But I think that little girl would be proud of me because I have done stuff where it's definitely out of my range and it was not on my bingo list at all. Like I just didn't think I would even try to do this or that. But when it comes to me and I have a burning desire for it, I just tend to go for it. So yeah, I think it's just a process. It's just a process.
Awesome. Thank you. The third question I have, one that really resonated with me because I have to get this F word out of my vocabulary. You said you didn't fail. That's the F word I was talking about. Just full disclosure. Okay? You said you didn't fail. You pivoted. And that pivot meant walking away from a dream that looked good on paper, but wasn't really yours. What does it really look like to hold your head up in the middle of that kind of shift? When the plan is crumbling, folks are watching, and you're trying to find the courage to chase a dream that finally feels like your own.
Yeah, so that's a loaded question. So Um, the book one of the first chapters of the book starts at the beginning of my career. And some of you already know this story. I started off at the doctor's program at Xavier University, right down the street from here. And the goal was to be a pharmacist, right? And so I got into the doctor's program, all the things, and then I realized that it just wasn't for me. But it took me some years to be able to finally leave the program. And so there's different times of back then I thought, and for a very long time, I still felt like it was a failure. But as I have evolved, I've realized that it's not a failure. I just evolved. Sometimes you're living someone else's dreams. You're not living your own. And you just don't want to, you don't want to disappoint other people. You have to remember, I was in my 20s then, And so it's a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times in your 20s, you're living for other people's expectations. And so that was a revelation in the book of, I held that for a long time of that fail because I was kind of, I was raised of if you start it, you don't change your mind. And we know that that's ridiculous, right? Sometimes things change or evolve. And so that was one of the things that writing the book and kind of reflecting back on a lot of career situations, scenarios. It was the book felt more like therapy writing it because I had to realize and I had to forgive myself for some of the stories in the book because I had to realize, like, girl, that was 25-year-old Aisha, and she didn't know that. She had some more learning to do. So that's one of the things that I've learned that it's more of an evolution. It's a pivot, not a fail. And that's whatever scenarios are. But that was just the one that I started with because I think a lot of people, it's very sexy to show the shiny things and not show how you got to where you are and all those stumbles in between and how they're not, failures. They're just getting you to the point where you need to be and you have to go through all those lessons.
Absolutely. You are definitely a diamond in the rough, and we thank you for applying the pressure needed for this book to come into fruition. So thank you for being so vulnerable. And we're going to go a little deeper.
Okay.
I know that you talked about this being a therapeutic experience for you writing the book, but one of the hardest chapters for you to write was about the cost of leading with color.
Mhm.
You actually rewrote it several times.
Mhm.
You admit that.
Mhm.
And you finally pushed on to write it. But what made you say, I'm not softening this?
Mhm.
They're going to get it wrong.
Mhm. Um, so there's a chapter, and if anyone has seen our documentary, it's a reference that in the book too. But it only happened once, thank goodness. But I was removed from a project for being black. And I worked for a huge healthcare organization. And if you work for healthcare, there's a protocol for a protocol. And so I was on this really large scale multi-million dollar project and I was doing well, but I was on there with an outside consultant who it was her very first consulting job. And so she was really nervous about not messing anything up for her client. But I had been doing that job for a very long time and I really did know, not being arrogant, I knew my shit. So she was very anxious at the beginning and she would write these emails and I would email her back and I was really managing the project and I was managing her emotions. And to the point where it was consoling so much for her that she sent it over to my leadership team and was like, "You know what? I was really nervous, but I really do feel confident. And here's an email from Aisha that helped me with that." So we were good. We were pretty good. And this is before COVID when there was no videos, right? And so you're on the call and it's just, they just know your voice. They just know your voice. And so she asked me to share a document. And mind you, please know I've been working on this for months and months, and it was a few weeks before go live, a few weeks. And so she asked me to share a document, and when I shared it, the Outlook picture, when I switched it, it went over. And so as soon as she saw it, she was very demeaning to me immediately. And so she demanded that I got pulled off the project. And so my leadership, our regular protocol was go audit their project plans, meeting minutes, everything. And they did. They audited, and that was the standard. And so that part was okay with me. And so I was like, so I don't care. Go ahead and audit it. There's plenty of months of stuff to audit. And so they audited it, and they said, my manager at the time was a white man, and he said, "There's nothing wrong with any of your documents. Like everything checks out." And I said, "I know." And he's because as Black women, we also probably know that we cover our ass all the time. You got to have your CYA folders, right? Yeah. But the fact that we have to do this and we all agree in unison, there's also some issues with that too, right? Because we know, oh, this can come up, right? And so, they audited, the director audited, and then they made the decision that pull her off. And so they pulled me off the project, and then they had me dial in, and they put a white woman on it like she asked for, not just anybody. And so they put her on the project, and she didn't know. She was innocent in all this. She didn't know. She just was doing what they told her to do, and at this point there was like a week left to go live. And so you can't the project is what it is at that point, right?
Yes.
And so, when they did that, they asked me, because she didn't know, they asked me to dial in quietly to the 800 number and feed her the answers through our thing.
Absolutely. Immediately no.
So, this is the reason why this was hard for me. One, that was demeaning, but two, I was so shocked I did it. And I was just like, okay. And part of me was like, well, I don't want to work with this woman anymore. She's a nightmare, you know? But I wrote the chapter and I had to write it a few times. And it was the only time in the book that I broke character as just giving you advice and had to be very honest that I had to write that chapter over and over again because I was in my 30s at the time. 45-year-old Aisha would have never did that. But I had to also forgive myself and acknowledge that sometimes we make decisions and agree from different perspectives, right? There's so many things that come at you, and sometimes you just get shocked as well. And you're just like, okay, but you're more shell shocked than anything. And I had to write that a few times because I had the process of why did you do that? Why did like everything was pointing to that was wrong. And so I had wrote the chapter a few times because I wasn't honest enough. And I had to reevaluate of also why did I respond that way too? And so for me, when I rewrote it, I wrote it as honestly as I could. And I wrote it because I realized that I was still angry at myself for that. I was angry at them because it was wrong and they knew it was wrong. And it was demeaning to have me dial in to feed her the answers. And then the lady went on and on. Oh, I hated that first project manager. But the second one, she was the best. And please know, our bonuses went off of our client feedback. Our leadership knew better and still gave me my bonus and was like, we know better. But why didn't you know better to stand up for that too?
Exactly.
Right? Because that's advocacy too. To say, no, it's just wrong. You don't have to say anything. It's wrong. And so I was upset with myself looking back at it, and I had to forgive myself because the reality was by this time I was grown, I was married, I had a kid, and I had a damn mortgage. And I'm looking at them but I didn't speak up for myself. And that kind of went back to that little girl who was shy and felt safe when she was quiet. And so to me, I realized that that was my way of keeping myself safe in that moment. You still have worked your whole career to make this amount and this title, and it could be gone in a moment because of someone else's ignorance, right? So you still have to protect yourself. But sometimes you feel so shell shocked that you don't know what else to do but say, go to whatever place it is, whether that's going crazy on someone or staying silent, but you just want to feel safe. And so once I realized that writing through it, I rewrote it so I could be honest with someone. I pray that never happens to anyone else and it never happened to me in my career again. But I did hold on to that. And I was always like, let me just double check and just make sure I have even more of all my files and everything together. Because what if this ever happens again? And so I rewrote that was one of the hardest chapters because I had to work through some things on my own to realize like, girl, why you not telling the truth when you keep writing it? I was telling the truth, but I wasn't telling the whole truth about how I felt. So yeah, so that was a hard chapter to write, but that's because it wasn't none of them are just stories, they're my life. And then I just kind of summarized it up. But I could have easily gave you the pretty, but it wasn't. There's plenty of pretty parts of my career, but then there's some parts that I wish that would not have happened. And I want to make sure I feel like I'm not being what am I doing if I'm writing a book and I'm telling the pretty version of everything. I'm going to give you the good, but I'm also going to give you if I actually had the bad, I'm going to be honest about it of what my experience is. So someone maybe understands how to advocate for themselves.
That's amazing, Asia. I do want to say I am so sorry that happened to you. I know that it happened to you because I was able to view the documentary.
Mhm.
I had the same clutch my pearls moment,
Mhm.
all of the accolades, all the experience, all the knowledge, the know-how, but you were belittled to a
Mhm.
diamond
Mhm. Yeah.
and dismissed because of the color of your skin.
Yeah.
And that just makes me angry.
Mhm.
But I'm so glad that you have evolved.
Yeah.
And for everyone listening, we have a chance now to evolve into that woman that would be the self advocate that we need to be.
Mm.
And I will say personally, this wampum organization has been amazing for me
Mhm.
with my walk in my career. It's made me become a more confident person, one that will speak up for timid Toya, one that will speak up for others.
Mhm.
And that book is a reminder it's not going to stay on the shelf. It's not going to, you know,
Mm.
stay or lay dormant on my phone. It's going to be active.
Mhm.
I literally used it yesterday trying to get here. I
Mhm.
had so many issues getting here.
Mhm.
Every turn said delay. Every
Mhm.
turn said delay. But I said no. God said delay, but not denied.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I love how you push through, even though when that first edit wasn't right, that second edit wasn't right of the story, but that third and final one, I'm glad it made it to print, and I'm
Yeah.
glad I'm able to just press play
Yeah.
and listen to that encouraging moment.
Mhm.
Whenever I feel like I'm not enough,
Mhm.
you reassure us that we are enough.
Thank you.
All right, next question before I get emotional. We've already talked about this in our morning session, but we live in a culture that glamorizes burnout and labels rest as lazy. But you said rest is a divine right. How did you give yourself permission to stop grinding long enough to hear God again?
Huh. The truthful answer is I just burnt out. That's just my truthful answer. I would love to give a beautiful answer that, I have this perfect balance at all times. And I don't. I have moments where I feel like I have a really good way of recalibrating and doing things that work for me, like yoga and breath work. And then I have certain times where it works so well, I'm feeling pretty good, and then I just stop it. And then I look up and I am exhausted and I am um hitting a wall. And so for me, I'm always recalibrating. I don't use the word balance anymore because it just doesn't make sense for me. I always use recalibration. It allows me to give myself grace. Also, because when I catch myself and I am getting burnt out, I try to do that less, but sometimes it's just there before I even know it. But I try to go back to holding on to those daily practices that I have of journaling. And that's one thing that helps me. I literally write it out and leave it on the page. I may not even read it ever again, but I have to leave it. I have to get it out and leave it somewhere. But it's a constant recalibration. It's a constant recalibration that I do and that I appreciate to be able just to give myself grace, the same grace that I give others and the same advice that I give others. Because a lot of times we're really good at giving that grace and advice to others, and we don't do it for ourselves. So I think we're all guilty of that. So it's always a recalibration for me.
Thank you. I'm just so glad that God gave you the vision to write this book
Mhm.
because I liken the way that you describe burnout
Mhm.
to my walk with God. You
Mm.
know, we all do it.
Mm.
Everything in life is going well, and we forget about God. We stop praying just because, things are going well.
Mm.
But the minute things are going wrong, the minute we feel that stress, that pressure, oh, turn to my Bible.
Yeah.
I gotta pray. I gotta pray. It should be a constant.
Yeah.
God is not the one who leaves us.
Mhm. Mhm.
We're the ones who depart from him, but he will never leave us nor forsake us.
Mhm.
And I'm just so but I'm just so thankful that he gave you this vision to write the book and now you're able to share it with all of these women and we're able to reshare it and we have calls to action in every them.
Yeah.
So to be mindful of time.
Mhm.
We did have a question that Dr. Sarita Bond um, uh, posted in the app. But it was my favorite. But there were a lot of good ones. Okay, Terry, you had a lot of good ones too. Okay, I was up. You did. You did. We gonna get you up to the right. Good. But this one, I love this one. It says, "Did you feel triggered, healed, or both when you wrote this?" Because Hunty, I know. Did I get the Hunty right?
I felt all of it. And Sarita knows she's written an amazing book that we had last year at the conference of Unleash Your Inner Bad Bitch.
Period.
And so the writing process. And I think if you're doing it, it's my first book, right? But if you're doing it honestly, because for me, I feel like if I'm not going to do it honestly and lay it all out, then what's the point? Right? It's just another task to do. So if you're doing it honestly, I think it's everything. I definitely had to forgive myself for a lot of stuff because how often do we go through our whole career and start thinking about every scenario we could think about that would be able to help somebody else and we could boil down to advice. In order to do that, you got to do some digging, but you also have to do some forgiving because the things you did at the beginning of your career or points where it was just pivots and you did think it was failing. I even talk about when I failed the PMP and I did it a few times. But I passed. So, um, but
And
yeah, but being honest about all those, I had to the book was more therapeutic because I had to forgive myself for a lot of stuff and I had to look at it through a different lens. I had to look at it of, well, you were just starting out in your career, Aisha. Of course you didn't know how to do that. Of course you didn't know how to say no. Of course you're going to be burnt out if you keep trying to overextend yourself and taking more projects and doing stuff nobody even asked you to do because you're trying to prove yourself. And so I think it's actually a beautiful exercise that everyone should do, at least reflect back to at least a few pivotal points because it gives you a lot of grace, but it also shows you how far you've come. And so, yeah, I had all of it. I had all of it. I felt all the emotions. I felt emotions that I didn't think I would. Like, I didn't think I would be thinking through inner child work of like being shy and how things impacted and how I reacted to stuff later on in my career. And I think sometimes if we don't stop and at least pause a little bit, we could be repeating those same things for the rest of our lives, for the rest of our careers. So, yeah, I felt all of it. I felt all of it.
thank you for that as well. We have one more question and then we are going to transition into our Q&A portion where if you have questions, I know a lot of you ladies have been posting questions in the app. If you're brave enough to do it scared and come and ask in front of all of us, it may be the same question, that is just waiting to be answered for someone else. So the last question I have for you is: you built wampum,
Mhm,
wrote this book, and still show up for your family.
mhm,
But in the acknowledgments, you thanked yourself for showing up.
mhm.
What did it take for you to finally say, I'm proud of me?
Mm. I think I never even thought about that for a long time until recent years. And I think it goes into a lot of the wellness conversations we've had about today. We are trained and awarded and promoted off of output. And so a lot of times we don't recognize how far we have come. And so in the acknowledgments, I thanked God first, of course. And then I went to go start thanking everybody else. And I said, wait a minute, I'm going to pull a Snoop Dogg and say,
Yes.
I like to thank me.
Yes.
As
He did. He sure did.
yeah. So that was kind of where that was from of just pausing and, you know, sometimes I've been doing inner child work this year, just working through some things. Um, and sometimes we just need to pause. I don't care what we're doing or where we're going. And you could easily just say your name. So sometimes I'll just say, Aisha, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. You did good. And so even if you feel like, oh, that's silly, just to keep it as a practice, just to start, makes a huge deal of how you talk to yourself. Because a lot of times we talk to everybody so nicely and we don't talk to ourselves nicely. So just to start that practice, everybody talks about the journaling, the affirmations, but it takes you 2 seconds to wake up and thank God and then tell yourself you're proud of yourself or I love you and call yourself like you talking to yourself. So yeah, so that was the acknowledgments. It was very something small, but it was a big deal that came from that.
It was. I think it's a huge deal to acknowledge yourself, especially when you are like really working on being a self advocate for yourself,
Yeah.
because there is life and death in the power of the tongue.
Mm.
And the minute you start, you know, speaking on things that you're afraid of, you've missed, like the mistakes you've made, like you are going to start embodying those traits.
Yeah.
And then you're going to just, bleed that same energy over to
Mhm.
the next person.
Yeah.
So for me, I try to stay positive. I try to encourage. I try to say the things that I would say to myself to other people,
Mhm.
because we are in this thing together.
Mhm.
We as women are in this thing together.
Mhm.
And it starts within. If you are nice to yourself, that's going to exude all over you. You're going to have a different energy, a different walk, you know, and then that's going to make people want to get to know who you are and trust you and build a bond and empower and encourage and move this thing on forward like we need to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think it's time for you want to hang what? Where did LB go? Is LB here? Oh, there she go. She popped up.
Does anyone have any questions? When's the tea?
She got it. For me. Mm. There you go.
What happens the question?
Hello. Hey, Roslyn. You know the rules, Ros.
Ma'am. Congratulations, by the way. I'm so happy for you, and I'm
Thank
so
you.
proud of you. Thank you. And I'm so excited to read the book, especially after this session. I was already excited because it's you,
Yeah.
and you are that angel that you are, but this is crazy. I'm really excited. So my question is, how did your definition of confidence change over the years, and how do you define it now?
That's a really good question. You've asking all the good questions today, Roslyn. That's a good one because how I define confidence is kind of like how I define like success and happy, which it evolves. So that confidence, I don't know, maybe that confidence at the beginning of my career could have been, I thought I was gonna have, be a doctor. I thought I was gonna be Dr. Aisha, have my doctor's degree in pharmacy, and that was definitely success. Um, then it changed throughout. So I think a lot of it went from the physical of like the financials and the title. And I think it's evolved to I know we are women of project management, but I don't really care about the titles. I care about what you're doing. I care about what that means, what that mission is. I care about what that means to my legacy. What will you guys think of yourselves, or what will anyone think about me when I'm gone? You know, and so how did you support them? They're not gonna think. You're not gonna think on your deathbed. Oh, my salary at this age was this, right? We gotta survive. That's reality, right? But to me, um, the confidence, the happy, the way I define that is, it's really in legacy and legacy building. And what does that look like? For me, that looks like how I'm supporting all of you women to build your own legacy. How am I building my own legacy? How do I want people to remember me? So it's not necessarily in the dollars or what I have. It's what I can do, what I can support for others, and how I leave people, of how I make them feel and how I can support them. Yeah. That's too. Hey Terry.
Hey, surprise.
So, um, so what I'm going to ask you is, you took trauma and translated it into power. You took what was perceived as failure, brought it to faith, and translated that into a 10-year legacy. In all of this, as you're writing the book and you're reflecting on that very difficult chapter, you can hear in your voice, for anybody who got the audiobook, you can hear that with each chapter you become more powerful. After Edie spoke, you became more powerful. How transformative was this process? I see how it's translated into what the conference is today. Standing in your power is something that I saw personified throughout the book. Tell me what it felt like in that transformative moment, and how you standing in your power through writing that book and sharing it and gives other women to permission to do so, or what standing in that power feels like right now as you sit on that stage.
That's a good question, Terry. That's good. That's good, Terry. It was good. Um, for this book, like I was saying, it was a spiritual journey. Like it's a project management book, but it really is a life book. And so I'm glad she felt that, because I felt it too. Because I did feel like I, even looking back, saw how I started building my confidence and the evolution of how my career, but how my life and how everything went together. But also when I just said, I'm going to break from the norm, and I'm just going to do what I want to do and what God put in my heart, which was to start this business and to evolve from there. And so it's been a journey. It's been a journey, and it's a journey to even look back at everything that I've gone through, because it's very humbling, but it's also very I don't know, it's just beautiful to look back to see that, as scared as I was every step of the way. And then also how even the women of this community, like, I'm supporting you guys, but we're all supporting each other. You're supporting me too. And so how even you grow in community to be able to dream louder and to go for things, because you have rooms like this that support you. And so it was a journey. It was a journey, but it was a lot of reflection. It was a lot of reflection where I felt like, damn, I did do that. I did that. Yeah.
Did it all.
Yeah. Did it.
So,
Yeah.
Hi, Asia.
Hi, Stella.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, as a visionary leader,
Mm.
having a community, having a book, and creating spaces for the needs of the women in the community, how do you balance the burden of the assignment that you have and the legacy that you're building with the blessing that is the community? Because I know sometimes things that pull you out, if we're not careful, can also drown your swell.
Yeah. So what are the things that you do to keep yourself centered so that the blessing doesn't become the anchor that pulls you down?
Yeah, that's a good question. If I'm being very honest, like most of y'all know, I'm not a crier. Um, but I have probably been the most emotional that I've been this year. Um, of just feeling the weight of that. I think that there's just been so many, and I put a post on Instagram of how a lot of people don't talk about how hard it is to hold space for Black women while being a Black woman. And you are navigating your own things and you're working through your own things. And I'm a wife and a mother and all the things. And you're still holding space because everybody's going through something. And there's times where you're fighting for everything, even to have this space. We're not a organization that gets millions of dollars to plan out their events a year, or whatever they're doing. And so every penny, is reinvested back because rooms like these are so important. But, the other side of it is you have the world feel like it's on fire sometimes. You have DEI rollbacks like we're a fad. Sometimes we're popular and sometimes we're not. Right? And so sometimes you're trying to advocate and protect other Black women and other Black women, and you still have the feeling of, my God, I don't feel protected. I don't feel protected myself. And so for me, I have to make sure that I ground. That could be as simple as and no news, no social media. That could be as simple as I gotta go to yoga. I gotta go yoga. I gotta go spend some time with my family. I need to take my shoes off and ground and walk in some grass. I'm definitely gotta pray. And so it's been a process, is the reality of it, because every year, and then you're planning things like this, right? That's taking a gazillion all the time, all the energy is worth it. It's all worth it. But you're doing that a lot of times despite so many other things that are happening in your lives and other people's life, but you're having to stay focused and you're having to know that God told me to do it, so I got to do it. And that sometimes that's not sexy. Because sometimes when it was time for me to leave my corporate job, I was like, God, you sure? Because I have worked my whole career for this up into this title, up into this amount. And all I heard God say is, if you don't do what I told you, I'm making everything stop. I'm not doing anything else. And when I finally made that leap, so many things open. So I think this is probably one of the years that I've had to lean on my faith, probably the most, because it's just like sometimes things come at you at so many different ways. But sometimes God puts you in a position where you don't have a choice to do anything but lean on Him. Yes. Hmm. Hello. Hello.
My name's Michelle. It's amazing hearing about your journey and where these come from and come to. But one of the things I hear in your voice, you can hear where you were when you're in your 20s, even in 20-year-old, I would say young girl, to the woman you are now. But I think everybody in this room can resonate. At what point did you realize you were just simply enough?
Mm, that's a really good question. That's a really good question. Um, the funny thing is, when I left corporate with all the accolades, with all the awards, with all the promotions, all the things, and I thought that was everything at the time. Like that was like these standards, hit this and then hit that and then hit that. And that has a time and place. But when I felt like I am enough is when I left corporate 100% and I was on faith only and I was building this community. That's when I felt the most love because I created this community because I could not find it. And so if you think about it, it's a crazy business plan. Because if you're like, where they at? Let me create a whole business about it. Um, and then they come and then they say, you create what you want for yourself and you're praying that other people need it too. And then when you come together in community and everyone else, it validated my feelings so much. God had already told me, I knew what I had been through. I knew what I was over. I knew what I was just over it. I had just outgrown it. But it was the validation, I think, of the community to say, no, I felt that way too. Or I've been through that too. Um, and it just made me feel like I wasn't crazy no more. Sometimes I just felt like I was like, even that scenario, I was like, well, maybe one of my documents was off, but maybe there was a justification for taking me off. And you can justify all type of things when you're operating in a bubble and when you feel like it's just me. Everything feels like you can easily blame yourself because sometimes in corporate they're gonna allow you to do that because and that's off of them, right? And then what do usually after? You work harder, you have more output, everybody else gets the benefit except you. You get the burnout. Um, and so I would say that's honestly when I felt like, uh, no, I am enough, and I've always been enough. And so I think that was the time, but it was because I was in community. It was because I was in the safe space. It was because we were having the weekly workshops and we were talking about different topics, but I'm hearing all these different trends of people having the same experiences, and even other types of experiences, and realizing like we really are stronger together. And even simple things as validating each other's feelings go so far. It gives you more confidence to say, oh, I really can do anything. And if I'm not sure, I'm going to go over to my girlfriend over here who knows she gets me, and I'm going to have her hype me up. It doesn't matter what the ideal is. So I think that's when I definitely felt like it was the confirmation of, girl, you are enough. You've been enough. Yeah. Thank you for that question. Hmm.
Hello. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Mhm. Mhm. So. Yeah. Mhm. Mhm. Oh. Mm. Mhm.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So you might have said that you were at home, staying at home, of course, working, and now back into the workforce. But I kind of feel the same way about me. So I went to college here, right? And I went through Hurricane Katrina. And so with Hurricane Katrina, if you live in New Orleans at the time, everybody in their head, it's before Katrina, after Hurricane Katrina. And for me, it feels like before being 100% entrepreneur and after. So I feel like that was corporate life and it served me well. Don't get me wrong. It served me well. And now it's entrepreneurship life. And so now I feel like it's this new life. It's this new chapter that I'm starting. And I could easily say, man, I wish I would have figured this out earlier when I was younger. Da, 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 da. Oh, that's always something. God's timing, you can't beat the God's timing though. Right. And so I feel like I'm always, um, some people could say reinventing myself, but really it's just dreaming bigger. Like this dreaming louder, I meant that. And it's really allowing myself to dream and realizing that, girl, this is not a trial run. this is your life. I know I'm a mother, but I'm also a human, and I also want my own legacy, and I don't want it. Love being a mom. I love being a wife, but I don't want to be remembered as somebody's mama and just somebody's wife. Those are honors to have, but I just want to I'm digging into who am I? And I think for corporate served me well. Don't get me wrong. There was different times where I loved being in corporate and there was a time and a place, but not anymore. And so I just feel like this is another chapter. And I feel like, what could I do if I couldn't fail? Like, I'm just going to try it. So that really on the outside, it may look like, oh, she's doing this and she's doing that. And I think when you're in alignment with God and you say, I'm going to go for it, God put in my heart, I'm going to be obedient. I think you'll see that everybody else on the outside, it may look super shiny and gorgeous, but you're just figuring out and saying, all right, I'm going to be obedient. I'm going to try it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to just go do it. And allowing yourself to just be curious. If there's nothing else you get from this conference, is please be curious about any and everything you're doing. If you're not going for something, why not? If it's a desire of your heart, why aren't you going for it? What the worst case gonna happen? You gonna fail? You still gonna quote unquote fail. If that's what you think, you're just gonna be like, oh, that's not I don't love that. That's really all that comes out of anything that when it's a perceived fail, it's like, oh, I didn't love that as much as I thought. Like I worked my ass off to get into pharmacy school. And when I got in there, I was like, uh-oh, I hate chemistry. And it was just like, oh, I didn't like that. But one thing I got out of it was if I never got in, I would have thought about that for the rest of my life. What if, what if, what if? And so I just don't want to live with any what ifs. So I think that's just needs to be your North Star of, let me try it. That's interesting. That scares me a little bit. Let me do it. I'm gonna try it. If it scared me, I'm gonna try it. And then you will surprise yourself of like, oh, I really did that. You look back and pause and say, I really did that to be proud of yourself. So I think it may look complicated on the outside sometimes, but it's really of like, let me try that. God, what you say? Can I do that? Yeah.
I shocked me. Do I read the death with this with his speak? But the Amazon something else and he talks. However, the separate his like Salamai there. Whenever the app is proper, they ever use they show a better result than that with that. That piece. Mm-hmm. What you all?
Thank you.
Go to the right to your door. I don't know. Then you so much patient. Eat other questions or then goes off in the breadable. Well, this is an audio. Over that comes my New Year.
Asia, are we having a book club?
We are gonna have something. I'm gonna announce in the membership. Yeah. We're gonna do some things. Yeah. Hey, Kat. Okay. Oh. Oh. Okay. I'm on somebody's island
Okay. Period. Look,
because at that point I'll be 75. Yeah, it might be mine. Speaking into existence. Um in 30 years. That's such a good question, Kat. No, I'm gonna tell you exactly what comes up immediately. Um, I want to be well rested. I want to know that I may not be actively working in women in project management, but I still want it to exist. Um, we're not a nonprofit on purpose because you don't own a nonprofit, right? And I want this to be part of my legacy, and I would definitely want women in project management to exist beyond me. I have big dreams for it, and I do want women in every part of the world to be, to have a piece of it. if they want to be in this industry to be able to support them. So at 75, I want to be still on somebody's island, but I want to still show up for the conferences and sit in the back. I want to see the generations. I want to see some women, if they have kids and they want to be project managers, and we're talking about how back in the day, in our day when we were at the conference. But I want to be well rested. I want to be with my husband, my adult son, and my family. But I want to be able to witness it and not have to do all this thing, but I want it to exist, and I want to witness it, and I want to witness generations of Black women who are not having some of the conversations that we're having because the industry has evolved so much. And they're like, oh, we don't talk about that anymore. You got pulled off of a of a project, but like that's not even a thing. But they are talking about some of the genius things that they are doing and creating and collaborating to be able to push this industry forward, for the sake of all of us. So that's where I want to be. Yeah. 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 Thank you for that question.
Plus, what is back? F merging block bowling rule, she calls it full. And all is shit.
My answer is the first thing I'm just going to say, the first thing that came to my mind. I know it could be communication and all these different great things that they tell us in our careers. But I would definitely say in this industry, the first thing you need to cultivate is some self-love. Because when you walk in there, I don't care who you are, they're expecting you to solve all their problems. And I think it's sometimes a really great way, and we feel honored of that. Like, oh, everyone's looking at me no matter what their title is, and they want me, they think I could solve this project and I have the skills to do it. But the other side of it is a lot of times Black women are expected to resolve everybody's problems. Um, and so I think that the best thing you can do is walk into those rooms and knowing who you are. Because when you do that, you can navigate any scenario. You can navigate if you are disrespected. You can navigate when they praise you and still know that you still got to keep a level head because they could switch in a minute. You still have to know to stay on your P's and Q's. And you have to know how to just navigate these rooms. So in project management, no matter what industry you're in, so many things come at you so quickly. And so I think you have to be able to stand 10 toes down. And that only comes from, like our conversation earlier, of grounding yourself and walking in those rooms, knowing who you are. Because when I start getting a lot more confidence of like, oh, nobody know what they doing in this room. Nobody knows what they're doing on this project. We don't know what the end goal. We don't even have a go live date. When I start realizing that, of like, okay, but one of my superpowers is organizing all the things. Then I started being more comfortable of being able to speak to everyone and understand of, okay, this is how I navigate whatever scenarios. But just kind of walking in there knowing who you are, that's half the battle. Because if you going in there, and the one thing we had a rule when I was in implementations and pharma, the one thing I would tell new project managers and implementations, because y'all know if you're in implementations, it's not just this one department. You managing departments of somebody from every single department in that company, and your client and their consultants, and sometimes they are sharks. And so you really just have to be able to understand, who you are and how to be able to navigate that, or they could smell it. They'll be able to smell it.